Welcome, welcome. We are going to talk about blog posts today and how to refresh them. Let me share my screen. And I did that wrong. There's the button. I'm just going to share my entire screen. Hopefully that doesn't get too busy. Okay. So we are going to talk about updating older blog posts. And if you are interested, optionally, you can drop in the chat your business name, your industry, and a title of an old blog post that you're going to refresh. So we can help each other out too. I would like to recommend that if you have questions, drop them in the chat. If you know how to answer them in the chat. However, we can do this together. So I think everybody can see everything. Yep. Okay. We've got infinity. Wonderful. So we're going to talk about doing older blog posts. To give you some housekeeping things, we have a replay and the slides are sent after. And then also, I just want to say that anything I say can and will not be held against me in a court of law. Dun dun. Because things change a lot around SEO, AI, EO, whatever you want to call the acronyms now. Everybody's got a different one. GEO is another one. But anything when it comes to website traffic and search and Google organic is constantly changing right now. And somebody will tell you this thing works. Somebody will tell you that thing works. So just know that any one thing you can try, but things can change at the drop of a dime lately. So what are we going to look at and why are we going to look at this? Blog posts over a year old generally are a great way to get more website traffic. And I say a year old because there's no wrong or right number, but that's just a way to look at it in terms of that. Think about it like this. If you have a blog post that's maybe 6 years old, 10 years old, depending on how long your website has been around, it is going to look like it has decayed is what Google looks like. It's kind of stagnant sitting out there. So if there's a competitor who is kind of content or it's fresher, it's newer, it has newer resources, Google is to favor the competitor over your website. So keep that in mind, that this is just one way to understand why it's so important. Because I think a lot of times we think, oh, I wrote this great blog post, I don't need to do anything else with it. I can just push it up there and then nothing else needs to happen. But in reality, it just doesn't work like that. So yeah, it's a great way to just get a refresh. So one of the examples, this is what I was going to talk about. I was losing my train of thought here. One of the examples that I have is I had a client who had an ultimate guide. An ultimate guide is sort of a longer blog post, and it basically is, I don't know, it's an ultimate guide. It talks about everything on the topic. So you have this big, long piece of content, and it's out there evergreen-like, which means it's timeless in a sort of sense, but it still needs updating. It needs refresh because there's still a lot of times when you land on a blog post and it feels very dated, like it just doesn't have a good tone to it almost. And we want to refresh it. It was getting about 2 leads per year, not a low number, but we went to refresh it. The copywriter, my copywriter Crompton, and she wrote it and we worked on it together to say, okay, well, what are we going to do to refresh it? We refreshed it and it got more leads. So instead of having 2 per year, it got 24 per year. And it was really good for this client in terms of numbers. And it had a super significant increase as well. I mean, I think I figured that was 169%, but it also increased in search visibility. So it showed up higher in the rankings once it was refreshed. So it's a great way to give some oomph to your website without having to start fresh and start new. A lot of the time, what I recommend is doing 1 blog post per month and then also doing 1 refresh, especially if you have a lot of older content that's been sitting out there for quite some time. So the first thing we have to do is identify which pages have the most potential to rank with just a few targeted updates. So we're not spending a whole bunch of time because a lot of us don't have a lot of time. So how do we identify them? There's 2 ways, probably more ways. These are the 2 ways that I like to look at it. Is 1, using Google Search Console. So you can find keywords using your Google Search Console. You can find keywords that are currently in position 11 through 20, and then you know your content, what has been written a long time ago. So in general search terms on Google, you a lot of the times we're now going to see AI overviews first. And then we're going to see probably ads, probably maps, who knows, we there's all kinds of things. And then you go into Google where there's 1 through 10, and then you can go to the next page and 11 through 20. And of course you're trying to get to that top of the organic piece. If you look for things that are between 11 and 20 and over a year old, you have a better chance at ranking faster sooner than if you started with a blog post that was over a year old and sitting, say, position number 80. And I have a screen here. I'm just going to show you on mine, for example, Google Search Console. There's a button over on the left with performance, and it gives you the actual performance of all your keywords that you're trying to rank for. And when you click on any one of them, it will give you different stats for just that one. But this is how you can tell what position you're ranking for in Google for any given keyword. And then it tells you how many impressions and how many clicks. So that's one way that you can look for something to update. The other one is you can get super nerdy with this with spreadsheets. So using Screaming Frog, you can bring all of your website pages into a Google Sheet, and then you can use your Google Search Console data and your GA4 data to evaluate it and put some parameters around, okay, this one's probably giving me conversions, so this one, maybe I can get more conversions with it. Or this one has a lot of traffic, but maybe this other one is further down the funnel. I want to do it that way. So there's different ways you can do it with that. And again, just drop any questions in the chat. I'll keep checking them every once in a while. So an example of getting nerdy with spreadsheets is this example. So I put all of my links or all of my pages on the address piece right here. And then I gave it a status at one point. So there's different statuses, different priorities. But this is what we're looking at in order to get more, if you want more logic behind how and when and how many pages you have, you can get really nitty gritty with it with views from GA4, how many people are seeing it, the engagement number, the conversions, and then the clicks from Google Search Console and the impressions. So it kind of helps you see too, you can put colors to it so it's easier to see which ones. And then probably like number 3 or 2.4, whatever you want to call it, is gut feeling. A lot of the times we just want to update a blog post that we know that we're going to use in an upcoming social, or we think it's a good piece of content to share with our current clients and it just needs updating. You can certainly do it that way as well. All right, so what does Google look for when deciding whether to rank your content higher? It looks at whether or not it's trusted and credible. And that's even more so today than it has been in the past. There's some specific words that you can use for it, but basically just want to know if when somebody lands on your website, are you trustworthy and are you credible? So is there an about page? Is there a privacy policy? Is it easy for people to contact you? When you look at the website, you know if it feels, blah, that's just not even real. That's not even a real company. So take a look at the website, mostly on mobile probably, but take a look and see if it looks trustworthy and credible. It needs to be relatable. So whether or not if someone is typing in a topic for that something that you sell or that you want to talk about, is that blog post relatable to that search? Because if it's not going to share it. And I know that seems almost like a gimme, but you'd be surprised at how many times there are blog posts that people are trying to rank for a certain keyword, and that keyword is nowhere to be found on that page, and it's not being talked about specifically. So making sure that it's relatable to the search. Another one is no errors, and that it loads faster than a turtle walks or crawls, whichever way you want to look at it. So making sure that the website is free from errors. And you can do that. There's a lot of places out there with free site searches, free site health checks that you can take a look at your website and make sure that there's no errors coming out of it. Because if there's a lot of errors and Google sees that on the back end, it's not going to look as favorably upon your website as, say, somebody else's who is. So it's not ever that you get dinged on your website for these things necessarily, but they're more likely to surface a competitor's website versus saying, oh, not this website, right? And then engaging. One of the the big examples is a lot of blog posts come up as a big wall of text and there's nothing on the page whatsoever. And it makes it really hard to keep the person's attention for the most part. Now, I think that there's some people that would probably argue with me and say, well, if they're really interested, they're going to read it. True, but we get distracted very easy. Like there's a dog walker out there right now, and I just want to be like looking at the dog. So we want to keep their attention by using different things on the page with images. Maybe nowadays with some AI tools that make it easy for coding and things, you can put some like interactive type quizzes on there or something. And then another thing that it cares about is matching what people actually search. So there's a thing called exact match, and then there's things called phrase and broad. It's kind of more used in the Google Ads space, but it makes a difference in your blog posts. So if you're targeting a specific phrase, there was an example someone was using, I think it was introvert friendly planning, but the actual phrase in the title was introverts planners or something like that. And I can't remember the exact words, but it wasn't exact. And that's great. It doesn't have to be exact all the time, but it makes it so much easier when it is, at least in your heading and in the first 50 to 100 words. And we're going to get into that in a second. But make sure that whatever you're writing about that is actually what people are typing in to the search bar. And fresh and original is another one that's been pretty hot topic lately in terms of content being commodity driven. There's so much content already out there. So like for me, in the beginning, I wrote a lot of how-to posts because I felt like I needed to write those. There's a lot more reasons I won't get into right now why I did that, but there's already a shit ton of how-to posts out there for what I do. So why would I need to write another one? Sometimes it's for the customer service angle. I want to be able to give my content away versus somebody else's article. But the idea around the fresh and original is making sure to add your own component. Not necessarily, I think some people get this a little bit overblown about adding you to your articles, but what that really means is being able to be unique and making it so that it can't be replicated in a certain way. So what that looks like is maybe getting quotes from people in a one-to-one fashion. I'm trying to think of how to say this. Like, you can get quotes from other articles and quote them inside of your blog post. But if you get a verbal quote from somebody that they haven't said somewhere else and they put it into your blog post, that's unique. So that's an example. Or if you have stats from a client or a customer or a testimonial that you can add, or even from calls, or I overheard this or something like that. Anything that's unique to what your business does, that adds a little bit less or adds more originality and less commoditized content. Okay, I'm going to keep looking. You recommend updating or specific things you recommend updating, for example, the graphic or specific text. Yes. So, actually, bra recyclers, Elaine, you're so funny. I'm looking at my thing. Here's the next slide. The specific elements to update on any page and what order to do it in. So we'll go into that now. These are the different areas that you can change. In particular, what you want to change is the content, the copy, the text, the refreshed images. And we're going to go into the next slide where it shows specifically all the things that happen on a page. But those are really the biggest things that you can change. And that's adding some of that credibility, those different markers like the, what do you want to call it? Oh my goodness gracious, it's slipping my mind. The quotes, things like that. Those are things that you can update. And I think a lot of us get really tied to our blog posts and we're like, oh my God, this was the best thing. I can't even think of how I would even upgrade it. How would I change it? But I want to take and encourage you to think about not making it better, but just giving it a refresh, giving it a maintenance kind of type of thing. I came up with a great analogy that I love to say now. It's kind of like when you go into a room and you're painting it and you just paint it once and then, you're all done. You don't have to ever do it again. But with blog posts and refreshing them, you have to treat them like plants. You have to water them regularly in order to maintain them and keep them going. So it's not about necessarily making them better or that they weren't good in the first place. It's just keeping that freshness. And the other thing that you're going to ask, and I know we're going to get into the next piece, is there a certain amount that you need to refresh or specifics? What I'm about to tell you is a big fat no. Like, you can change all you want or change as little as you want. There is no guideline for how much to change. For me, it's about making such a difference that it feels a little bit different. So if I have a blog post that's maybe 800 to 1,000 words, I might want to change up, let's say maybe it's 5 paragraphs, maybe one sentence per paragraph if I had to give it something. Definitely refreshing at least 1 or 2 images, depending on how many are on the page, and adding some of those credible pieces and the uniqueness to the page. Okay, so let's get into this. This looks like a lot, but it's not so bad because we're just going over these pieces that are pretty much already in your blog post. But these are the different areas that you can take a look at that are prime pieces of a proper blog post, and all of these can be updated. And then when you get the slides, you'll be able to get this bigger so you can see it. It's just showing you a visual of what this looks like. So this might look like the title tag. So your heading and your title tag are two different things, but they can be the same thing. When you go to Google, you see the blue link and then you see a description underneath. That's what this title tag is. Generally speaking, your system will automatically put your heading as your title tag, but you can change it. So if you want to keep your headline to your blog post the same, but you want to update something, you could change the title tag, and that would just change on the search results page. And then you have the meta description with the primary keyword. So that would be just changing up maybe a few words in there, just taking a different angle perhaps. And then you need your heading 1, which is your headline or the title of the blog post. A lot of the times I don't change this one, but it can be changed. It really depends too on how much you end up changing the context. There have been cases when we've done like full on overloads for a blog refresh, and sometimes we've just changed like 5 or 6 tweaking things. Making sure that the keyword is and or a close variant inside the first 50 to 100 words. So right at the very top of the post, because page reader, Googles and crawlers and AI and everything, they all start with top down, but it's not necessarily read that way specifically when they're trying to process it, but that's kind of like how it starts and like gets put into the system. You want to have at least one subheading with a keyword. So think about like an outline. You have your heading, and then you have your subheading 2 or a headline 2, headline 3, headline 4. Have at least one subheading with a keyword in there. And then you want to add semantic variation. So various synonyms for the phrase that you're using. And don't overdo it. Like, it shouldn't sound weird. Like, if you're saying it out loud, a lot of times I read these things out loud, it makes it much easier to understand. Am I saying it too much? Because you can kind of get the sense of it versus reading. And then supporting secondary keywords where they can fit naturally. So again, not keyword stuffing, but if there's a secondary keyword that kind of means the same, but maybe not exactly, you can add it in there and even use that to your advantage. So you could write another blog post on the secondary keyword as the primary keyword and then link over to that one. Then we have image file names and alt text. So when you download an image and you want to put it into a blog post, a lot of the time what we do is we go to Canva, we create a photo, and then we upload it in there as is. But if you ensure that that file name has the target keyword, that is a great place to insert that. Now, I'm not going to say you would update your image file names necessarily, but if they don't have a keyword, I would recommend downloading your images, renaming them, and then re-uploading them. Some systems will let you put the name in there and overwrite the old name, but that doesn't 100% guarantee that they're going to change the back end. So unless you know how to check that, I recommend just downloading it, renaming it, and then re-uploading it. And then you can change your alt text as well, making sure that's aligned with the keyword. And we also have internal links to and from related sources. The links on the page to other web pages is called an anchor text. So instead of saying read this blog post, you might put a sentence that describes what's in the blog post and then use 2 words of that sentence to link over to that blog post. News articles do this all the time. That's a great way to go see what that looks like. And then external links, so credible sources. You want to have maybe at least one external link if it fits. I mean, if it doesn't always fit, that's okay too. But if there's a way to use an external link to a credible source, that adds weight for Google's thinking that you know what you're talking about, showcasing that they can go look at this to verify what you've said. And then we have a clear CTA at the end, making sure that people are doing the call to action. When they go down to the bottom of the page, what is it that you really, really want them to do next? And I would encourage you not just to put it at the bottom of the page, but even in the middle or even at the top. And just so that way it's kind of like in their brain when they're reading it. So they've started and they're like, oh, yeah, there's a guide. Okay. And then they come down. Oh, yeah, there's a guide. Oh, yeah. And then they come down. Oh, there's the guide. And then they get the guide. So a clear call to action. Okay. The next question we have is how to know when a page is worth updating versus when to let it go. Is it sparking traffic? Is it sparking joy? Is it giving you traffic, basically? So the purpose of all of your website pages is either they should bring traffic, they should provide a service, or they should convert to your goal purpose for your business or your website goal. Leaving stale content. I've got another great analogy for you. Leaving stale content on your website is like leaving expired food in your fridge. I can't tell you how many times I have to just go and throw things out because I just don't cook a lot. So I always find a lot of expired food. And there's just a lot of wasted space in there. And it's just making it be all icky. So if you keep leaving that in there, you're not giving, and it's more of a not seeing type of thing. I know to us it doesn't feel like that because they're just kind of out there living. But when Google and AI and they all have to come through your website, they look at all this older content. They're looking at everything. So if there's a bunch of stuff that doesn't need to be there, you can give that energy, quote, computer energy, to the newer stuff. And then they don't have to worry about the older stuff. And that really helps too. So we have that. Okay. Any questions? I think we're doing good. Okay, cool. Before you go, so this was super short, actually. Boy, I talk really fast. This was, before you go, I want you to do this. Type in to search or on your phone and type in site:/domain.com. Domain being your website. Maybe I should change that. Your website. Put in your website.com. And then what do you see? This is a great way to get a visual to understand what Google is seeing on your website. Because when you hit enter, you're going to end up seeing all the pages that Google has for your website. And you can see the title that it's choosing, the description. A lot of the times you'll see some weird policy pages, things that you wouldn't necessarily want people to land on because it's not as good for your brand. So that's a good place to start as well. If you see some stuff out there that's like, oh my God, I forgot all about that blog post, that's a great one to start with too. So you could do it that way. All right, so that wraps up how to update older content for better results. And I will send the link and the email with all of the pieces. If there's any way that you want to get help, if you need anything, there are 3 ways that we can work together. I do have strategy sessions. I do have the next step, which is a website power-up plan. And there's free ways as well. So if you're not ready to take the next step, we do have, I have a podcast called the Get More Website Traffic Podcast. I also have a newsletter. And you can find me over on Instagram. So if when you get these and you're sitting there and you're updating your blog posts and you have a question, just shoot me a message on Instagram and I will give you some feedback on that. So, all right. Well, thank you. And thank you, bra recyclers, and everyone have a great day.